Morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're viewing from. I'm Laura Thompson with TAN TV, the African American Network, where we have a local feel with a global reach, and we're back to speak with another phenomenal legend in our community to talk about the Martin Luther King Commission and her involvement in it. So, how you doing?
I am doing great, and it's an honor to get invited. I said, an interview? I says, oh, I'm famous.
I know, right?
Oh, I says, oh, I don't know how I'm going to act, so I came dressed famously.
Right. Well, some people are legends in their own mind, but she's a true legend. She's been at this for a long, long time. And so before we get started with the interview, could you give us a little background information on you, like who you are, what you do, and why you do it?
Well, my name is Linda Joyce Rogers Tippins. Grew up on the east side. I am a proud lifetime resident of the east side. Graduated, went to St. Peter Claver High School, which is now Healy Murphy. Graduated from there, went to St. Philip's College, got my social arts degree, and in Conway College I got my bachelor's, and I had great backgrounds, legacies of grandparents and great grandparents that taught me and was willing to always teach me the word of the Lord, number one, praise God to him. But she always told me the history of the black community. And that's why I got involved with some of these activities like this, because we can't lose it. And somewhere down the line, some people are not telling the story the way it should be. And we have to get that story in so our children will not get lost in time.
Wow. Well, that's phenomenal. Well,
Mhm.
we were fortunate to have the group that's leading the commission this year to request, that we interview some of the legends
Mhm.
and some of the people that helped to build the foundation of the march, not only through the commission but before then. So, can you give us a little information on when you started participating in the march itself?
Okay, here she goes with my age. But that's because age means that you're really seasoning. I really began. I was there. My daughter Odessa, uh, Darnell Tippins. She was a student at. She was the last group that actually I call graduated. That was promoted out of James Wickham Raleigh. And that year in August, James Wickham Raleigh was changed to Martin Luther King Middle School. She was there when Dr. Callis was there teaching at the school. And I can remember her saying, I want to march with Dr. Callis. I want to march with Dr. Callis. I want to go with him. But he would go and he'd take students and they would march, and they would march all up down Nebraska Street before it was Martin Luther King. People forget about that. And he would march up Nebraska Street and take students to where they were at whatever he was down at the Martin Luther King High School, and then he would march them up to where the Brownfields and East Houston would be, taking donations. But his goal was to build a statue in commemoration of Dr. King. Once that got into the forefront of people like Congressman Tejada, Frank Tejada, and I think people forget about that. That had it not been for Congressman Tejada, that would not be a Martin Luther King holiday, because he is the one that advocated with it, along with the bunch of people here in San Antonio, to go ahead and make this a commemorable holiday because of the service. So when the march started getting into a place where they said we need more people, I marched the first time. I thought I was gonna die because they say 3 miles. I said, it's a long 3 miles. But once you start marching and talking and singing and people start telling stories and you meet new people along the way of all races, all colors, all genders, and you finally got to the end, you would say, well, can we go a little bit further? Can we march a little further? So I've been involved within it for well over 40 years. And now, first year I was marching, and I said, you know what? The second year I want to volunteer to see what I need to do. So I volunteered the second year of my 40, I think around 45 years involved with this. Where I work with the volunteers at the very beginning of the march, getting everybody lined up, getting them ready. And the last person you saw at the very end of the march was Linda Tippins there telling people, come on down, you still got plenty of time, you still got plenty of time. And that's how I've been involved with it, volunteering in some way, getting other volunteers to handle logistics, to volunteer as marshal.
So, you served as the volunteer chair.
Logistics and
for-
volunteers, yes.
Yes, and that's a position that it doesn't really come to mind when you think about planning events.
Yes, ma'am.
But it's a very significant event because if you don't have those volunteers, and if you can't organize them and put them out there in the positions where they could best serve, we would have a problem. And so we commend you for
Thank you so much.
taking on that task for a long time. It's not an easy job because volunteers are not paid, and for somebody to be
Right.
able to organize and motivate people to work that are not paid is a big job.
Thank you.
And so we commend you for that. So tell us a little bit about, what it took to organize the volunteers and when you started with the commission.
Well, what did it take? It took a lot of prayers and patience, the two P's. And people say prayers and patience, prayers and patience. That's what it is. It took a lot of prayers and took a lot of patience because people didn't understand it was not just marching. It was organizing. It was getting them to participate in activities that was not just the march activities. There was youth summits. There was faith-based activities going on. There was commemorative activities going on, and we needed to let them know that we needed people to do certain things. One of the hardest things to do was count T-shirts. People say, "God, ladies, it's like 3,000 T-shirts here," and I said, when you think you got around 500 volunteers, and the rest of them you're going to give out at different activities, you had to go to people like yourself and says, "Can you put me on your radio station, your TV station, and announce to people that we need volunteers, from the very young to our seasoned seniors, to come in and participate and help me count activities, help me sign people in at different events. If you are a good person to speak," and I says, every grandma is a good person to speak. I want to make sure y'all understand that. And I said, don't always pick the people that you think they have a PhD. I say, all grandmas got PhDs, and they'll tell you what they stand for.
Right.
I said, talk to those people along the way that sits in the front porch, and they are volunteers. And so we had to do a lot of block walking, a lot of going to churches, got college, universities, to recruit volunteers, the military, the nonprofits, the for-profits, to get volunteers in to come in and to train them because this was new to them. And also there was a fear factor. People says, well, Dr. King got assassinated. Yes, he did. But the assassination that occurred brought up a lot of bravery for people to stand up and speak up on the behalf of other people and to realize that we had to make changes. And the way we make changes is through volunteers like yourself. They understood it wasn't going to get paid. They understand sometimes it's going to be long hours. They understand that, and you've been there. And I gotta put my pat on my hand on your back right here, because she's been there through the when it was real warm, and you were there when it was really cold. But we still kept on marching, and to understand that regardless of what the weather is, unless there's official change from a council person, that you as a volunteer is very, very important. And one of the things that I believe Dr. Piper is going to be looking at is the continuation of activities, not just for the march, but for the whole year. And those volunteers that you already recruited, they can continue on, and we can continue on to get more volunteers in so they actually can understand what Dr. Martin Luther King March is all about. So that's what I was. I'm constantly talking, constantly walking, constantly recruiting, constantly giving people my telephone numbers, and I have a because of what I do. I'm on call 24/7, not just for Martin Luther King, but because of people who are going through crisis and mental health and mental illness and depression, and wondering why is it happening to me. So we have people like them too that we can channel into, and now since we have a connection with you, we always had a connection with you, by the way. I want to make sure you understand that. We always had a connection with this lady. Very, very person that was an advocate for all these, that you can get more people in the media to get involved with what it is locally, statewide, and nationally and internationally. So that's what I did. And people say, that sounds kind of boring. It's not boring when you see somebody and you give them a shirt like this. You give them a shirt like this and say, oh, by the way, this is your shirt. This is your size. Your time is to show up at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock, yes, 7 a.m., not
Right.
p.m. The march is over then. Or for the youth summit, to show up at these activities with your shirt ready to go. And so you're representing the Martin Luther King Commission. And I tell everybody, we are the official Martin Luther King Commission, although we have some other people coming in that came in later on. But the official MLK Commission is sponsored by the city of San Antonio and Bexar County.
Wow. And so all these years, I just thought Mrs. Linda J. Tippins just was responsible for T-shirts, but she was responsible for much, much more. Organizing. It's almost like organizing the whole event, really, because dealing with logistics and volunteers and managing people is a great, huge job, and it takes a special kind of person in order to make that happen.
Thank you so much.
And so when we talked about the interviewing people for the Martin Luther King Commission, I said we need to contact Ms. Linda J. Tippins because she knows the backstory about how everything was organized and put together, because she played an integral role in it. And so when did you, are you still working with the commission?
Yes, ma'am. I'm still working with commission. I'm bringing on a lot of younger people in so they understand what logistics volunteerism is, to sign up, to participate, and getting a lot of our youth involved in it, because I want to make sure everybody understands the story that is being told is not being told. Because people say, okay, name a black hero or somebody that you know that you've seen, and sometimes they may say LeBron James, they may say Michael Jordan, and they may say every once in a while they come up
Wemby.
Those Wimpy, and then they come up with Dr. Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, but we need to teach and make sure as we go through the process that we fill in all the spots, because our children and adults are failing to remember the importance of civil rights, what has occurred to us. And I say this to you and to myself: had it not been for what occurred through our legacy, through our grandparents, through what happened. Yes, slavery came over from Africa. And one of the falseness that we have, that all slaves was left in the United States of America. You better go to England, you better go to France, you better go to Spain, you better go to Haiti, you better go to Australia, you better go to some other places where you see that we're not just here. But you got to remember that slavery was negative because of what was done with us. But we turned it around because we were able to come up with a different language, a different way of eating, a different way of approaching, a different way of stretching that little dollar that we got a day. And people say, some people didn't work for $1 a day. Yes, they did. You know, and everybody think, oh, I make 15, 20, $30 a day. But as we go through this process, start telling the true stories, and not just Dr. Martin Luther King. That's people locally that we could talk about, you know. And if you don't know anybody to talk about, then talk about Grandma and them. And people say, "Ooh, she got a bachelor's," and she said, "Them." I said, "Yeah," because every time when I was growing up, I said, "Grandma and them," because I had a grandma and a great grandma, and they said, "Which grandma are you talking about?" I says, "Well, the one that's cooking the ham hocks, the greens, and all the other stuff that goes along that." Or ask somebody like you. They can call up and say, "Look, I have a question, and I can't see it on Facebook, or I can't find it anywhere else. Can you ask somebody about this?" You can call up a Mario Solis or John Sanders or Renee Watson, or or whomever you think they can answer those questions. But we need to realize that volunteerism through the Martin Luther King Commission has been great for me. I've been able to train my children, which is Odessa, Dietrich, Domitri, Darian, Hosea, Maxine, with there's another one, Sir Robert, and get them involved with these, and even some ministers to get involved with these. But as we go through the process, Martin Luther King is one day. What's happening to the 364 if it's not a leap year?
Wow.
Where are the stories there? And then we have somebody who's trying to take the books off of the libraries, take our names out of the history. And that's why, besides volunteerism, when I'm sitting back there going here to there and yonder and talking to some people, some of the children I talk to, and he says, "Well, who is Marvin Sapp?" I said, "You don't know who Sapp is?" They said, "No." And so I took a little boy behind the stage and said, This is Mr. Sapp." They say, "And he can sing?" And I said, "Yeah, he can sing." And some of these people they never approached before, but because they so used to hearing rap artists or some other things is going on, they need to know about the art of history that has been forgotten, or we've allowed it to be forgotten. So,
Right.
yeah, volunteerism is a lot. You got to humble yourself. You get tired. After you do work with MLK Commission for so long, and you've been there, and you've been media, and I always look at you, and I see her coming in sometime, and they say, "Well, she don't have a media pass." I say, "She's official. Let her in." And as we go through looking at these things, if we don't continue to tell the story of the ML King Commission, of all the people that was involved with not just the ML King Commission, but with the history of the U.S. of A. and all over this world, then we are forsaking our ability to keep the legacy alive. And that's what we need to do, is keep the legacy alive. Civil rights, is 50 plus years old, but some of the kids don't even know what civil rights is. Some of the adults don't even know what civil rights is.
Right, and it's our responsibility to
Yes,
pass
ma'am.
that information on,
Mhm.
because they wouldn't know unless we explained it to them. But I wanted to say, I'm looking at your shirt.
Yeah.
I see a lot of legends and pioneers that participated in the march or that were instrumental in, making sure the march existed.
Yes, Pastor Black, Claude Black, because he worked very closely with Dr. King in some of the activities. And because Dr. King, people say, did King ever come to San Antonio? Yes, he did.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he did. And I may have it wrong. I don't know if he spoke in Antioch or Mount Zion.
Mount Zion.
Mount Zion. He spoke there, and people said, we didn't know he showed that. I said, yeah, and also, let me tell you, Jesse Jackson came here too. And he was always Alexander Petrichor and Barbara Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
So as we go through the process, I think we have Reverend Callis here, Nancy Bowman, that was with the city of San Antonio, and she was one of the first 5 people that was on the commission chair here. Of course, you're going to have Dr. King, you're going to have Obama, you have Reverend Callis here, and who else?
Ethel Minor.
Yeah, Ethel Minor, NAACP.
E. Thurman Walker.
Yeah, E. Thurman Walker. So what we tried to do is show the connection of historical people that people forget about. And these are people that were behind the scenes and in front of the scene that made it happen over and over again. We appreciate Mount Zion for allowing them, the church, to use their facilities for different meetings that went on. Antioch was the same way. We appreciate them. We appreciate Bishop Copeland's church because he allowed us to have programs out there, and there was so many churches. The Baptist Ministers Union, they have come through with the Friday night spiritual gospel extravaganza that they have right before the march comes in. So this was one we put together, and they say everything was in black and white. They say, Linda, why didn't you make it colorful? I say, because you need to know everything that we go through is in black and white.
Wow.
If you don't see it in black and white, then something's missing there. So we can always do colors. But we always want to demonstrate to people that we have to recognize all our champions that we have. And I tell everybody this, and sometimes people get very mad at me. I says, my hero was my great-grandmother. 4th grade education, but she could read and write. My great-grandmother, which was, my grandmother was 8th grade education. My great-grandmother was 4th grade education. But they told me how to read when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
And they always told me, God first, others second. And they always kept it. It says, and you will succeed. And they told me about the things that you would come across as a child growing up in the South. And people say, well, Texas wasn't as bad as all the rest of the states. Yeah, but you didn't see it. See, you got to remember, some things you didn't see. And, and I'm going to do everything I can to work with you and any people that you send to me so we can start telling about all the stories that occurred in their communities, and especially the East Side. And I'm going to say it again, the East Side of San Antonio, Texas, because there's a lot of historical activities that occurred there that people didn't realize that it happened. So, yeah, I love what I do with the MLK Commission, but I love my presence in this community because I think God, and I know God puts you and me and all your cohorts in a place for a reason, for several seasons, to make a difference that somebody's growing along the way.
Wow. Well, this has been a great, great, great conversation. You heard it first from Linda J. Tippins and the work that she has done, not only for the Martin Luther King Commission, but for the community at large and as a whole. And so this has been another episode of Stories from Martin Luther King Commission Legends. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. God bless y'all.